Cool. Good morning, everybody. It's absolutely delighted to be here this morning. A real pleasure. Introduce myself. I'm Tracy Murphy, the Senior Director for Stokes & Next. Jenn Carkner is our Senior Director for our Cereal business, and Sinead is our HR Director. So it's a pleasure to be here this morning to talk about how we've been building our culture in Kellogg's and the work that we've been doing around EVP. And I've been really fortunate in my career to work in some amazing businesses. But next month I will be in Kellogg's for 10 years. And it'll actually be my longest tenure in any organisation. And there's really good reason for that. It's a very special place to work. So what makes it special? Well, if you ask anybody in our organisation, probably the first thing they'll say to you is people. People are at the heart of DNA of our organisation. And of course, then there's our amazing, iconic brands that our consumers know and love, and it very much have grown up with. And we take our responsibility for those brands very, very seriously. We invest in them, we nurture them, and we make sure that they're going to be here for future generations. And of course, there's so much more. But it's fair to say, in the 10 years that I've been in Kellogg, we have been on a journey with regards to building and strengthening our culture. And we've been very intentional about that. So we leverage our global opinion survey and we'll look for opportunities to strengthen our culture so that it's the very best that it can be for our existing employees, but also to attract strong talent and be a competitive advantage. And I'll just give you two examples of some of the things that we've been doing around culture. So, for example, we identified an opportunity to improve empowerment and also pace in our organisation. And we led an initiative called Make It Happen. And then, of course, the work that we've done around equity, diversity and inclusion and the setting up of our employee groups, or BERGs. And the picture you see here is an example of that. This is our activation of Pride this year that was led by one of those BERG groups. But for me, the real temperature check of how we're doing on culture is when I get to meet new people who have just joined our organisation. And they might be a few weeks or a few months in, and I'll ask them, how's it going and how are they feeling? And it makes me incredibly proud to hear them say things like, I'm pinching myself, is it really this good? And I can't believe it, I'm telling all my friends and I'm so happy here. To which I always respond, I'm so happy you feel that way because I still feel that way 10 years on. So that brings us then to our EVP work, which really was about articulating all those things that make Kellogg special and bringing that to life in a campaign and a strategy to, let's say, make our current employees feel very, very proud of where they work, but also to attract very strong talent to our organisation. So I'm now going to hand over to Sinead, who spearheaded the campaign. Over to you, Sinead.
Good morning, everyone. What an amazing venue. I've not been here before. Thank you. And as I was driving in this morning, the sun was shining. It was a beautiful morning, and I had this thought, goodness, Sinead, this is quite ambitious of you. You're talking about brand to brand expert. So we bribed you with some swag, because I ain't no brand expert, so let's just be clear. But what I am really proud to share is the work that we have kicked off on employer brand, a really important topic and something that we're really proud of. So we're going to share the science bit. I thought I'd start with some definitions because that's where I had to start. I didn't know a huge amount about brand. I didn't know a huge amount about EVP. So we started with some definitions around what is an employer brand. And effectively that's your reputation as an employer. It's what you put out there in the world around who you are, why you're a great place to work, the true and honest essence of who you are as a company. EVP then, what's that all about? So this is the employee value proposition. And what this talks to is the value exchange between you as an employer and the potential or current employees. And we call it give-get. So what you give to the company and what you get in return. So that's where we had to start when we kicked off this work, being really clear on what an employer brand is and what an EVP is. And this work was a joint partnership with our internal comms team, who are absolutely amazing, and also supported by Paul Humphreys, our VP for marketing. So he was our guru from a brand perspective, so we did lean into the experts. So I guess, why did we decide to refresh our EVP? And hands up anyone who's had difficulty recruiting in the last few years. Please don't leave me on my own. Okay, brilliant. There's a few of you. The reality is, coming out of COVID, it became really challenging to recruit talent. And we know as an employer, you absolutely have to have the best talent to deliver your strategy. The one thing we also heard from our recruiters is that as things are getting more aggressive in the recruitment market, it's a noisy space. Everybody is shouting loud and proud about who they are, except us. So our big aha was people don't know us as an employer. Like, we have the best kept secret from an EVP perspective. And while humility is one of our values, we decided the time for humility is over. It's now time to shout about who we are and what's great about our company. And the stories that Tracy, even her own story, that's true and real. People who join us love working for us. I'm in Kellogg's 12 years. It's also the longest I've been with any employer because it's brilliant. The other thing I'll say is that obviously we have strong ambitions in terms of growth, and we can't deliver those ambitions without amazing talent. Our European headquarters is based in Dublin, and we want that talent to reflect the markets we serve. So we need a diverse, rich heritage of talent in the organisation. And therefore you need to go out and tell a diverse story about who you are as an employer and the opportunities you can amass with us as a company. We firmly believe that people are a competitive advantage. So we can have the best strategy, we can have the best plans, but if you don't have the best people, they come to nothing. So that's firmly part of who we are as an organisation. And the last reason that we wanted to revamp our EVP is for an internal branding to remind people about the great things about working at Kellogg's. Because look, we all know it's tough, it can get tough, things are challenging, and therefore it's important to be reminded about what are the good things about the organisation. So what did we do and how did we set about establishing our EVP? Well, the first thing we did is started with data. We did focus groups internally, we looked at personas across the organisation, people who just joined, like Tracy talked about, people who've with us a while, like me, 12 years, with people who've been with us for many years. So we did multiple interviews with stakeholders to understand what their lived experience was of working with Kellogg's, why they joined, and more importantly, why they stayed. So we can understand what are the unique aspects of our culture that attract and retain talent. We also looked externally. So we wanted to know what's the competition doing when they talk about who they are as an employer. And we did some competitive landscape assessments. So we looked at Mondelez, we looked at competitive sets at FMCG, we looked at pharma, just to see what other companies are doing to provide some, I suppose, provocation. And then we also looked at stakeholders internally. So senior stakeholders, pressure testing, this is what we're hearing from our employees, this is what they're saying about what's great, what's your perspective? And with all of that, we also looked at GOS, our Global Opinion Survey. This is our pulse check of the organisation to see from a sentiment perspective how are people feeling. So what we got was a tsunami of data. And with all of that, what we did was we said, okay, let's call in some experts. So we worked with a company called PH Creative. They are employer brand experts, and they helped us filter all of that information through a tried and tested methodology. And what their methodology looks at is employee happiness. It's all of the things that make up what's important to employees. It attracts them to your organisation and helps them stay with you. And the key things that they look at is impact, purpose, and belonging. That's what people want. You want to make an impact, you want to feel like you belong, and you also want to feel that you can live your purpose in that organisation. And how do organisations respond to that? So we look at what are we doing from a career catalyst perspective? How can we as an organisation help you propel your career? We also look at citizenship. We also look at citizenship. So what are we doing in terms of community and what we're giving back to the community? And then culture. And Tracy mentioned our culture, our make it happen culture, which is our magic sauce. So that's the science bit over. And when you build your EVP, your employee narrative, that touches on all of those elements, culture, citizenship, and belonging, you drive impact, you help employees understand and future employees understand what the experience is going to be like working with you. And then they can decide, are you for them? Are they for you? Because that's also important in the EVP proposition. So as we filtered all of our information, our three big ahas were firstly, we underplay in citizenship. We have really strong credentials when it comes to ESG. We give back to the community. We are well known in regard to that space in terms of our food clubs, food banks, all of the kind of ESG activity that we're involved in. And we don't talk about it. We don't share it. The second thing we learned is that from a career perspective, we might be the best when it comes to career mapping. So there are very sophisticated career maps out there, but we do amazing things. We provide career routes for people, we provide training for people. For junior people joining our organisation, because our structure is so flat, you get access to senior people. You're involved in very strategic projects. And again, we don't talk about that enough. Lastly, but not least, our superpower is culture. And we're really proud of the culture that we have at Kellogg's. Ask any of the Kellogg's colleagues here, they will talk to you about what it feels like to work at Kellogg's. So there are the components that we said really need to feature in our ESG, or in our EPP. So what did we do with all of that? Well, we created a narrative. We captured the essence of who we are and we built out a brand story. So all of you who are marketing will know what that looks like. We built out a brand book. We helped create assets to ensure that our talent, our acquisition team, went to market with a compelling story. We used bold and edgy visuals. So you might recognize some of the faces. All of the faces in our campaign are our people. Some of them are in the audience, smiling. And it wasn't mortifying that we did this. It was actually because what we wanted was their true and authentic stories about what it's like to work at Kellogg's. And we videoed so many of them. Many of them told their stories, and we're using that content to tell our employer brand story externally when we're going to market. The other thing you'll see is that our big bold K represents us as an employer and also kind of a nod to our brands. So we wanted to put in place a campaign that was catching, that was disruptive, that when you scroll through the myriad of ads that are out there for employees for jobs, that you actually hopefully are attracted to that iconic K and a beautiful smiling face. We also built out a huge number of assets to support with the talent team, but also hiring managers as they go to market so that they're consistent in our narrative and our story. One of the things we did was we looked across all of our advertising, and it was a smorgasbord. When you looked at ads in certain countries, they looked very different to ads in other countries. When you looked at the narrative and the story, there was no clear red thread. So actually, as a potential employee, we're confused about the proposition. And this work that we did just ensured that we had consistency, not only in the visual cues that attract people to your organisation, but more importantly, consistency in the message. Because what we're hearing from employees is the message around why people join and why they stay is very consistent. So, just to give you a flavour of what they look like, working with our comms team, who are absolutely superheroes and superstars, they helped us create a portal, a one source of truth for everything with regards to our EVP. That includes all of the visuals, the brand book that we created, all of the assets that were developed for external campaigns, and also some of the key kind of sound bites that we wanted to use consistently in some of our messaging. So it became our one-stop shop. You'll see that a comprehensive brand catalog. It's not a spelling error. We got the use of K. So anything with the C is swapped with the K. So we produced a comprehensive brand catalog for our talent team. And the feedback from our recruiters is outstanding. They're getting much higher engagement levels. They're actually seeing higher click rates through to our career sites. So we're seeing the value of the investment that we have in our EVP. And here's just a quick flash-up of what some of those ads might look like. Maybe you've seen them on social. We've really done a big push in terms of leveraging social channels, both paid and organic, to try to drive attraction to our career site and also attraction to Kellogg's. And when we were thinking about activation, we thought, you know that walkway in the airport? Wouldn't it be brilliant if we did a takeover of all of those walkways, of all of those spaces in the airport? And this is what our campaign looked like. So I'm not sure if anyone has seen it when they're wandering through the airport, but we also got all of the stars from our internal video campaigns. So all of those faces and images are our very own people. And we thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a big reveal of themselves in the airport? So here's a little video of them seeing themselves for the first time. They were mortified. We were so happy. In the airport when we did the big reveal.
Well, we normally want our campaigns to blow up, but I didn't quite mean me.
Thinking of a global career, man, modeling.
feel like I'm a star. I've never seen myself in such a big screen. I feel very proud to be one of the faces that represents Kellogg.
It's so cool. It's so visible. It's so visible.
Oh, I love it. I think it's fantastic, really bright, exciting, disruptive. I'm really looking forward to seeing the fresh talent that we bring into Kellogg.
All these people coming, living and walking by are going to see that, Kellogg's is here in Dublin, so it's a great visibility for the company.
So that just gives you a flavour of, one, the fun we had in creating the content. And initially when we started to ask and reach out to some of our teams to get involved, there was a little bit of nervousness and apprehension. And now we're getting requests from them. So those who might like the star profile are keen to get more involved. But it just goes to show the passion and the willingness of our staff to get involved. So we're really proud to be able to showcase their true stories as we develop our EVP. So in terms of the activation plan, so how do we actually activate it? So you'll see some of the things we did in the airport, but it wasn't just about an airport sting, because that's a short-term piece, given the cost of advertising in the airport. It was much more about how do we embed this into our culture, how do we ensure that it sticks, and how do we ensure that it's utilised for the purpose of attracting and retaining talent in the organisation. So we trained our TA team, we had extensive training with them on using the assets to ensure that they were embedded. Also the comms team, when they're in market locally doing activations or going to career fairs, that they knew where to access all of the content, any materials that they need for physical presence at a careers fair or anything they're doing is available to them. As I said, we put all the materials in an easy access site so they can download them. They were developed intentionally using PH Creative so they could be easily accessed and produced very quickly and relatively inexpensively. So people didn't need to do any customization with them. So the LinkedIn files, I've heard so much about LinkedIn. The LinkedIn files were done in the format that LinkedIn need to use and it just made it so easy for them to avail of them. We also did a launch internally, because it's also important that people internally, as I said, recognise and understand the values of the brand and remind ourselves about what it is that is great about working with Kellogg's. And then in terms of kind of ongoing embedding, we'll continue to update the assets. We create stories, we continue to create stories around what's happening in our industry with our employees, what's the advances in terms of our products, our brands, our people, and we will continue to refresh those assets. So we'll be talent scouting internally for more stories. But what's the bang for buck in terms of what we've done and the return on the investment? In terms of the activation, I've also learned that it's very expensive to advertise on social channels. LinkedIn ain't cheap, Facebook either, any of the social channels. So we had to secure investment to support our EVP, and thankfully that investment is paying off. The campaign went live in May, and from May until today we're seeing higher click rates. We're seeing greater attraction right through to our career site as a result of the campaigns we've been launching. And we're seeing consistency. So when you go onto any social channels, you can see immediately that the ad is Kellogg's, the visual cues are there, which is great. And this is just a graphic kind of showing the 4 to 5% hike we've seen in click rates through to our career site. It's in early days, as that's only launched since May, but the talent team are telling us the engagement they're getting as a result of the campaigns, the speculative queries they're getting from the ads that are now circulating are increasing, and they are absolutely thrilled. So the last thing I'd say is, cheekily, we had only launched in May, and in June we entered the Irish HR Champions Award for the work we had done for the EVP, because we're so proud of it. I guess it was early, we didn't have a huge amount of data to show how it was landing or the impact, but we were absolutely thrilled to win that award. So here we are. And I have to say that the commitment to our EVP, when we secured funding from our exec team, we used a lot of the conversations we hear around the brand. This is a brand. You can't launch it and leave it, you need to launch it and love it. Therefore, we will go back for more money. So that's just a whistle-stop tour of our EVP. I found it interesting, and I think we're going to move to some questions. Oh, sorry, I ended too quickly. There was one more video. We love a good video like that. So here's just one final video to summarise some of our EVP content.
It's an exciting time to be involved in the food industry, and it's definitely an exciting time to be working for Kellogg. The world, for sure, is in flux at the moment, and big companies like ours are reimagining their part in it. The pace of that change can definitely be scary for the faint-hearted. Or do you choose to see it as an exciting opportunity?
Kellogg's has the perfect size for ambitious people. I mean, big enough to be the leader of your category and work on fantastic brands, and small enough to be agile, innovative, and have an impact whatever your position in the organization.
We have a make it happen culture here, and that means it's up to us. We get to create the future.
When you work here, you really have the chance to work on some of the most iconic brands and all in the company of great colleagues.
Since I have joined Kellogg, I have been driving our well-being strategy for our European brand. So far, the journey has been challenging, but very rewarding, as I had the chance to shape the things my way, but also to stretch myself and my team.
Kellogg gave me a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to redesign our entire cereal packaging portfolio. I was given the freedom to create a new design-centric approach, and I just wouldn't have had that level of autonomy and control at any other big company.
When you come into Kellogg's, you see a fast-paced environment, an environment where you're challenged to bring your best to work every day.
The job opportunities here are diverse and varied. You'll never sit still on one brand or one team.
The collaborative environment at Kellogg is unique. We're really one team with one dream, and we're working together to make it happen.
You might come into the business for a variety of reasons, but most times you end up staying for the culture.
To thrive at Kellogg, you need to be courageous. You need to be a nimble learner. You have to ask good questions, tough questions sometimes, so that we can all be better together.
So when people ask me, who do you work for, what do you do, and I mention Kellogg's name, I get one similar response everywhere. People smile, right? It's time for a new generation to come through and sustain that reaction so that in 20, 30, 40 years' time, the same thing is happening even more broadly across the world.